What's up, YouTubers? It's me, Johnny. Just sitting outside making another video, thinking about the day's events. Today I watched a pretty cool video that Doug Casey and Matt Smith put out, basically concerning all the stuff happening in Canada, the truckers that are, I don't want to say striking, but protesting in Canada. Anyways, they talked about how now the Canadian government can not exactly seize your bank account. Yesterday I made a video, I've been making videos like take your money, that kind of thing. I think I jumped the gun a little bit, like they can stop transactions, not exactly take your money. But what's interesting about that is it's up to the companies now, not the government so much. They're telling the banks they won't be held liable for turning off your account or not letting you do transactions you want to do. And to me, that's pretty scary, thinking about that. They won't be held liable if they make a mistake and think you did something you didn't even do. It's even pretty scary thinking like I don't particularly want to protest anything, but for people who do want to protest, to think that they can shut down your account anytime you want. And then tying this all in with central bank digital currencies, like if we go down that road, or if some countries go down that road, the government won't really need the cooperation of banks to do all this for them. What I would say is they do a lot of their dirty work. Like one of my relatives used to work at a bank, and she used to be familiar with bank employees pulling suspicious activity reports, things like that. Like if you deposit a money order, you deposit a check, and you probably think I'm insane or crazy, but like my relative said, they have to cover their ass. So even if it's not really anything suspicious, they just automatically, whether it's cash, checks that don't look right to them, they just automatically report it to the government. And usually nothing ever happens. The government, I doubt, even investigates these things because there's so many of these things, these SARs being pulled and reported to Uncle Sam. So sometimes I think we're pretty safe because all this information is going somewhere, but it's not really being collated and used. But now with AI technology, I wonder about that myself, like with this upcoming AI technology, all this new software that's coming, how safe we really are. It's pretty scary thinking about it. But what's really fascinating is how few people, they don't seem to react to it. Like they're not going to make a plan B. They're not going to put some money offshore in an account. They're not going to figure out what their options are. They're not going to buy gold or silver coins. They're not going to buy Bitcoin. They're just going to come what may and deal with it, I guess. And not really worry about it too much, which seems to me kind of scary. But like the way things are going, the way the world's going in most first world countries, I don't particularly want to live in them. Like New Zealand's a good example where, again, I want to stress New Zealand is a Commonwealth country. It's not the same as China, and I'm not trying to suggest that, but New Zealand is going down the road that China does. When you enter the country, they can take your phone and put software on it to follow you around and to listen to your phone calls. I'm amazed people tolerate that. Now, I should also point out, I'm not really suggesting the minute these things happen, you just get the hell out of Dodge. If you're single, maybe. And if you like living in other countries, of course, if you really don't, I actually get it. In that case, I would move to a smaller town, USA or Canada. If I was Canadian, I'd probably move to the States and move to the smaller communities. And I've always leaned towards Texas. I like Tejas a lot. I haven't really been to Florida. My folks have been to Florida. But I'm reading so much and watching so much content about Florida and how a lot of venture capital is going there that now it has me interested more. So if I was going to live in the States, I would consider certain parts of Texas and certain parts of Florida. And because Florida is close to the Caribbean and you can fly to Miami real cheap to anywhere in Latin America, maybe that's where I end up. Or if you're in Texas, you can fly out cheap places there. I think, oh, where is it? I forget the town, but there's a town there. I want to say San Antonio, but I don't think it is. No, it's that Caribbean. It's the coastal town there. I forget the name of it, where you can get really cheap flights out of there to Latin America. For me personally, I like being near an airport where I can get to Latin America really fast and really cheap. I also like being in Texas for the reasons that you can be right on, real close to the border and get across the border if you ever really need to, if you have some kind of legal problem or something like that. Anyways, I just find the times we're living in very fascinating. Kind of to me, the good news though is from watching George Gammon. He's at Rebel Capitalist. I think he's got two channels. One is Rebel Capitalist and one is George Gammon. But right now he's in I think he's in Medellin, in Colombia, and I follow him on Twitter. I recognize he's selling a home down there. He got a little BS for selling his home, which I don't understand. For $350K, I don't think people realize how expensive the nice parts of Medellin is, and I don't think they recognize how much capital's flying out of North America into South America, and I don't even recognize how much capital is flowing out of Europe, but I hear about it, but just not as familiar with it. But because of my contacts in Mexico, I do recognize a lot of European money and American money is going into these little towns and communities and buying up almost all these little properties. And I'm not against it or anything, but it's really going to drive up the cost of rents and homes there with all this capital flooding out of first world countries into Latin America. And I presume the same thing's going to happen in Asia, like Thailand, Philippines, Cambodia. But in those countries, it's harder for you to legally own property in your own name. Usually you have to do a workaround like having a company or a nominee, stuff like that, which I don't want to talk about really. In Thailand and also in Philippines, I'm more familiar with the Philippines. What you can do is certain buildings, usually they say a percentage of the building can be bought by foreigners, and when that percentage is used up, then you can't. Because I am familiar with quite a few Europeans who own property, like in I forget the town or the little community in Manila, but some in the downtown kind of yuppie areas, those places used to go for like 120, 130,000 euros. And that was like 20 years ago. That was super cheap. I mean, I bet now they're about a third of a million euros, maybe half a million euros. I mean, I could be way off. And again, I haven't been there in a long time, but I used to know like some Belgian people that bought a couple in, I think in the SM Mall tower. Anyways, I'm digressing a little bit, but just speaking of the Belgian guys I knew, he was a banker, and even back then, 20 years ago, Europeans, I'm only going by what they say and what they tell me, they like to get, and I knew a guy from Norway too who built up a restaurant and what do you call it? Those little things you sell like flowers and trees and stuff. A nursery, yeah. He built a nursery and a restaurant kind of thing. Anyways, he did actually pretty good at it, but what they all told me is the cost of living and the cost of regulation, the cost of complying with regulation was so high there. They have to have like businesses and stuff overseas just to get by. And my understanding was once they got their affairs wrapped up in Europe, they were just going to leave. It was just too much of a hassle. Nowadays, I think about it like it's much, much worse than it's ever been. Anyways, I was going to mention some of the good news. George Gammon was saying he's in Colombia. I'm not sure if he's putting on a conference in Colombia, but wherever he is putting on a conference, they just got rid of all their mask mandates and all that kind of nonsense to go to a hotel and do a conference or whatever it is he's doing. But he's been talking about that, and I agree. A lot of these health passports and mandates for flying around and for visiting countries are starting to go away. Now you hear a little bit of contrariness, like say in Costa Rica, but I still think even in Costa Rica in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, you're going to hear they're getting rid of it. I follow some stuff on Facebook, and I hear people whining and complaining about people not wearing masks in Guatemala, people who, and all that. But I actually think in in a month or so, probably there won't be any mandates. I don't even know if there's even mandates. Do you have to even wear a mask in Guatemala? I just know people wear them. Some people don't wear them. No one says anything. No one really cares. But I think more and more as time goes on, at least out of first world countries, these things are gonna be discontinued, especially in Asia and Latin America. I can't speak to the first world countries as much, but it seems like Canada and the United States might be the last holdouts for all this silliness. And will things go back to normal? I think they'll go back to normal to a certain extent, but as far as regulation and taxation and more constraints on your liberties to build a business in the United States and Canada, that stuff ain't going away. And I would still have in the back of my mind that if there's another economic crisis, the government will probably use what it's learned during this COVID crisis to start cracking down on people's movement from state to state or from the United States to another country. That's highly speculative of me to say that, but I get the feeling first world countries have done all this as an experiment to see what they can get away with as far as keeping people locked up in their homes, locked up in their country so they can't leave. I'm thinking of like Australia and the UK for a little bit of this. You couldn't leave the UK. I think it was the same in New Zealand, but I don't recall. But just the idea that they could lock you up for 2 years and you can't leave, and they can put in regulations that you lose your business into bankruptcy, and then they inflate the money supply and give the money supply to most big business. Again, I want to stress I'm pro free markets. I'm not against free market capitalism or anything like that. It's just I just get mad and pissed off that millions of small businesses in the United States were lost. When I was visiting my folks during all this, seeing all the business in the part of Arizona where they were at, or still are at, but just these businesses are gone and they've never come back. It's millions and millions of businesses, billions of dollars, I'm sure. And the same thing in Australia. It just ticks me off that the government really had no constraints or no problems with inflating the money supply, giving it to big business with no constraints. As we saw in the States, there's a lot of fraud going on there. Some businesses gave back the money, others didn't. A lot of businesses use the money to buy expensive luxury cars, expensive luxury apartments in Florida, of all places. I mean, if you got to buy a luxury condo, do it in Florida. So I don't blame them for doing it, but it does, you do realize that when the shit hits the fan, the establishments are going to cover their ass, protect their friends, and come one way as far as the inflation that comes after that. It's going to affect people who don't have any assets. And that's what's sad about this whole thing, because there's still quite a few Americans who don't have access to assets or low interest loans. I'm one of them, as a matter of fact, but I do have credit. I have access to credit. I have residencies overseas. I have other things too I won't mention, but there's still quite a few people who just live paycheck to paycheck, and this inflation has really ruined them. I mean, I can't tell you how many articles I read where people's rents have gone up 50%. I'm not sure how much my mom's rent went up, but hers went up, but I keep reading people 30, 40, 50%. And some people, at $2,000, that's $3,000. Or if you had $1,000, that's $1,500, or $1,000, $1,200. And for a lot of people who live in, like my mom's retired, and so she lives on a pension, and she doesn't own her home, so that does affect her. Now, again, my stepmom is not in that situation, so for her things aren't so bad. But for people with limited income and at the end of their life, they just can't go back to work. And if they didn't accumulate a lot of capital, they can't really expect to live off that capital unless it was a lot, unless they know how to allocate it. That's what sucks. There's so many, the investment rules over my lifetime has changed quite a bit. And a lot of people don't really know how to allocate their capital to take advantage of all this. And that's what's a shame. That just irritates the heck out of me. But it is what it is. We all have to learn new skills, learn new ways of existing and prospering, especially in other countries if that's what you want. And in a different economy. And I was just thinking right now, like our economy is going to the more and more online. I mean, I just as a matter of fact know more and more people who get almost all their income online vis-a-vis the internet. That's all they have to have. And the internet's good enough in most of the world. You can do that. The only constraint is a lot of companies in the U.S. that pay really well want you to be in the geographical USA before they will hire you. So it's still a point where you have to negotiate that to leave and live in another country if that's what you want to do. But a lot of companies don't want that. So personally, I think that's going to change over time, because if companies want good employees, they're going to have to do that. As a matter of fact, there's starting to be a recognition that if you want the best employees, and if they're not willing to live in the U.S., you're going to have to accept the fact that they're living in other countries, whether they're Americans or Europeans or whoever they are, because companies are starting to figure out, with this great loss of liberty, a lot of people are just going to say, heck with it, I'm going to somewhere else where I'm treated better, where I can do what I want with my time and money. And if companies want to hire those people to work for them or to consult with them, they're going to have to be willing to let go of their, you got to be a resident of the U.S. or live in the geographical U.S. That's what gets me. I could do a lot more things, but they want me to be physically there. So I'd rather just do kind of what I'm doing now. But anyways, so one thing when you leave the U.S., you still have that type A personality where you want to do more. But I'm getting to the point where it's less desirable. And plus, with the amount of money you can earn working online, even with what little is available, you can earn enough to get by and then save money and add to your assets and all that kind of stuff. So there's that. But I do believe we're going to get to the point where more and more companies will not care where you live. It'll just be whoever has the best skills. They'll be paid all in dollars offshore or through cryptocurrency or stable coins, and that's just the way it's going to be. And for people who prepare for all this, they'll be better off than those who don't. But right now, in the next few years, I expect there to be more chaos as people learn to readjust to these new realities. It's too bad it has to go down this road. But from what I see happening in Canada and the U.S., the government's not going to make it easy for middle-class people. They're going to start scaring away more middle-class people. And you're going to see more middle-class people just plain dropping out. That's sad and painful for me to see young men dropping out of society, playing video games and not developing their skills or whatever. Not even traveling. That just, like, I don't understand it. And that's not everyone, just some, I'm just saying. But I'm starting to see more and more other people they see what's happening in Canada. They see what the government response is, and they're saying, the hell with it. I'm just going to get on welfare. I'm just going to retire. I'm going to, So I kind of get it. I'm not really even saying anything bad. But just for people out there who listen to this video, there are options. And there are other ways of living that probably can get you where you want to go. You may have to move. You may have to get more comfortable banking overseas. You may have to get comfortable setting up an LLC. Also, to another important thing people don't think about when they leave the U.S. is keeping your U.S.-based credit, and or before you leave, building up credit in the name of an LLC. That can be really, really important when you're looking to get financing at U.S. dollar rates that are really, really low compared to like Latin America or Asia or whatever. So like if you're entrepreneurial and you need capital for stuff like that, it's really, really important. But most of the time, it's just best to build up with your savings and not even borrow, and then whatever happens, and you can just use your retained earnings to build up your business. That's what I really recommend. But still, having U.S.-based credit it can really come in handy when your ass is in a really tight situation. You need to get out of Dodge, or you need some working capital to get back going again for whatever it is you're doing. One of my friend Patrick, he didn't realize that when he left, closed out all his bank accounts, all his credit facilities. His credit just went downhill, and when he returned to the States, he had a real tough time readjusting and building up his credit and all that. And as we go into the future, I just see social credit as a big thing where you're going to have a good credit score. You're going to have an ESG score, which I think is silly. But that's the way the first world's going. And Personally, I'd rather just live somewhere else where these things are less important and no one cares. And you can still retain your have part of your foot in North America if you want, vis-a-vis business or visiting there from time to time or whatever. But with the internet and with other things, you can keep one foot in North America, another one somewhere else, and kind of get the best of both worlds, things like that. And I guess I feel compelled to talk about this, seeing what's happening in Canada, U.S. I feel kind of grateful for what I do have, and also to the options I have, and because I still see a lot of stuff on Facebook, on Twitter, talking about they really, really, really believe that once they step out of the United States, they're going to get assassinated by the cartels or something, or really, really bad things are going to happen. But I'm really surprised the media. On the one hand, I'm not really surprised, but I'm really surprised with all the social media out there. People would see things aren't as bad as they think. And there's a lot of places you can live that's not Latin America, that's not Southeast Asia, like Eastern Europe, the Pacific Islands. Like I know a guy in, I want to say Saipan. Anyways, I'm getting off this. There's just a lot of places you can go to and visit. There's a lot of options you can get. And then there's just like, you could live like some of the YouTubers that I like to follow, just go from country to country to country if that's what you want to do. Or just go from region to region to region. Or just plant yourself in one area and just stay there. There's always options for what you're looking for your lifestyle. Anyways, that's it for now. Like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thanks.